Marcus Chen stood at the entrance of Jefferson High School, his military-issued duffel bag slung over one shoulder. The morning sun cast long shadows across the concrete steps, and the sound of chattering teenagers filled the air. At 19, he was older than most seniors, but his enhanced physiology made him appear closer to their age. The Terran Defense Force had done that to him during the war against the Zarathi Empire. 3 years ago, Marcus had been a regular 16-year-old worried about algebra tests and asking Sarah Morrison to prom. Then the aliens came. The Zarathi had swept through 12 star systems before humanity even knew they existed. Earth's governments had no choice but to draft every able-bodied person over 16. Marcus remembered the day the recruitment officers came to his school. Their faces grim as they explained that humanity's survival depended on young people like him. The bioenhancement program had been experimental then. They pumped his body full of nanobots that strengthened his bones, quickened his reflexes, and sharpened his mind. The process was agony, but it worked. Marcus became one of the first enhanced soldiers in the 47th Terran Regiment. He fought on frozen moons and burning planets, watched friends die in ways that still haunted his dreams, and somehow survived when 90% of his unit didn't. Now the war was over. Humanity had won, barely. The Zarathi had retreated to their home systems after losing their fleet commanders in a desperate human assault on their fortress world. Marcus had been there, had pulled the trigger that brought down their war leader. The metal in his bag proved it, though he never planned to show it to anyone. The school bell rang, jolting him from his memories. Students rushed past him, their biggest concerns apparently focused on upcoming tests and weekend plans. Marcus envied them. He took a deep breath and walked through the doors, his enhanced hearing picking up dozens of conversations at once. His counselor, Mrs. Patterson, had explained that finishing high school was mandatory for all returning veterans under 21. The government wanted them to reintegrate into society, to become normal citizens again. Marcus doubted that was possible. How could someone who had seen the Zarathi breeding pits on Kepler 442b worry about chemistry homework? How could someone who had held dying friends in their arms care about cafeteria drama? But he would try. He owed it to the ones who didn't make it home. His first class was American literature with Mr. Hendricks. The teacher was a thin man in his 50s who seemed genuinely passionate about books. Marcus found a seat in the back corner, his enhanced senses automatically cataloging every exit and potential threat in the room. Old habits died hard. Today we're discussing The Things They Carried by Tim O'Brien, Mr. Hendricks announced. It's about soldiers in Vietnam and the physical and emotional burdens they carried during and after war. Marcus almost laughed at the irony. He pulled out a notebook and began taking notes, his enhanced reflexes making his handwriting impossibly neat and fast. The other students struggled to keep up with the teacher's pace, but Marcus absorbed every word effortlessly. The nanobots in his brain had improved his memory and processing speed dramatically. A girl with bright red hair sitting 2 seats away kept glancing at him. Her name was Jessica, according to the class roster he had memorized in 30 seconds. She seemed curious rather than hostile, which was more than Marcus could say for some of the stares he was getting from other students. Word traveled fast in high school, and everyone knew about the new transfer student who was really a war veteran. During lunch, Marcus sat alone in the cafeteria, picking at a sandwich that tasted like cardboard compared to military rations. A group of football players at a nearby table were talking loudly about their upcoming game against their rival school. Their concerns seemed so trivial that Marcus had to remind himself they were just kids. They hadn't seen what he had seen. "Mind if I sit here?" Jessica appeared beside his table holding a lunch tray. Marcus gestured to the empty chair across from him. She sat down and studied his face for a moment. "You're the veteran everyone's talking about, right? The one who fought the aliens?" Marcus nodded slowly. "Among other things." "That must have been incredible," she said, her eyes bright with curiosity. "What was it like? Fighting in space, I mean?" Marcus set down his sandwich. How could he explain the horror of boarding actions in zero gravity, where the Zarathi would tear through human soldiers with their razor-sharp claws? How could he describe watching planets burn from orbit? Knowing millions of innocent people were dying below, how could he make her understand that war wasn't like the movies, where heroes made speeches and good always triumphed? "It was necessary," he said finally, "but I'd rather not talk about it." Jessica's face fell slightly, but she nodded. "I understand. My dad was in the army before the alien war. He doesn't like talking about his deployments either. She took a bite of her salad and changed the subject. So what do you think of Jefferson High so far? It's different, Marcus admitted. Quieter than I'm used to. That was an understatement. After 3 years of constant warfare, the peaceful hallways of Jefferson High felt almost surreal. No explosions in the distance, no alarm klaxons warning of incoming attacks, no need to sleep with one eye open. Marcus found the silence almost more unsettling than combat had been. The afternoon brought chemistry class where Marcus discovered that his enhanced intellect made the coursework almost insultingly easy. While other students struggled with molecular structures, Marcus was mentally redesigning the explosive compounds he had used to breach Zarathi fortifications. His teacher, Dr. Martinez, noticed his advanced understanding and asked him to stay after class. "Marcus, I've reviewed your military transcripts," she said. "Your scores on aptitude tests are remarkable. Have you considered applying to MIT or Caltech? With your background, you could probably get a full scholarship." Marcus hadn't thought about college. The idea of 4 more years of school felt overwhelming when he could barely handle one day at Jefferson High. "I'm just trying to get through this year," he told her. As the final bell rang, Marcus walked to his assigned locker. The combination was 182407, the same numbers as his old military ID. Some bureaucrat's idea of helping veterans remember their combinations. He grabbed his textbooks and headed for the parking lot, where his motorcycle waited. The bike was a gift from his commanding officer, Colonel Sarah Reeves, who had survived the war and now worked at Veteran Affairs. She thought it would help him feel more normal, more like a regular teenager. Marcus appreciated the gesture, even if he knew he would never be normal again. As he rode home through the suburban streets, Marcus passed children playing in yards, their laughter echoing in the afternoon air. This was what he had fought for, he reminded himself. The chance for humanity to continue existing, for kids to grow up without fear of alien invasion. The war had been worth it, even if the cost had been almost everything he used to be. Tomorrow would bring another day at Jefferson High, another attempt at becoming the person he might have been if the Zarathi had never come. Marcus wasn't sure if it was possible, but for the sake of his fallen friends, he would keep trying. Marcus's second week at Jefferson High began with an unexpected challenge. During gym class, Coach Williams announced they would be playing dodgeball, a game Marcus remembered from his younger days. What the coach didn't anticipate was how 3 years of enhanced reflexes and combat training would translate to high school athletics. The first ball came at Marcus fast, thrown by Derek Thompson, the star quarterback who had been giving him hostile looks since day one. Marcus's enhanced perception slowed time just enough for him to see the ball's trajectory, calculate its spin, and step aside with fluid grace. The ball sailed past him and struck the wall with a loud thump. Derek's confident smirk faded. Within minutes, Marcus had eliminated half the opposing team. His movements were too quick, too precise. He caught balls that should have been impossible to catch and threw them with accuracy that made the other students stare in amazement and growing unease. When he accidentally threw a ball hard enough to knock Tommy Jenkins clean off his feet, Coach Williams blew his whistle. "Chen, ease up out there. This is supposed to be fun, not military training." Marcus felt heat rise in his cheeks. He had gotten carried away, let his combat instincts take over. The nanobots in his system were designed to enhance his performance in life-or-death situations, not high school gym class. He spent the rest of the period deliberately missing shots and moving slower, but the damage was done. His classmates now looked at him with a mixture of fear and suspicion. In the locker room afterward, Derek cornered him while the other students kept their distance. "Think you're pretty hot stuff, don't you, soldier boy?" Derek's voice carried the aggressive tone Marcus recognized from young soldiers trying to prove themselves. "Just because you fought some aliens doesn't mean you run this school." Marcus finished tying his shoes and stood up slowly. Even without his enhancements, he was taller than Derek. But the biomodifications had added lean muscle mass that made his presence more imposing. "I'm not trying to run anything," he said quietly. "I just want to finish school and move on with my life." "Well, maybe you should transfer somewhere else." Derek stepped closer, his football teammates gathering behind him like a pack of wolves. "We don't need freaks here reminding everyone about the war." The word freak hit Marcus harder than it should have. It was the same term some civilians used for enhanced veterans, People who had been changed by technology they didn't understand to fight a war they couldn't imagine. Marcus felt his anger building. The same cold fury that had carried him through countless battles. His enhanced senses picked up Derek's elevated heart rate, the slight tremor in his hands, the way his friends were unconsciously stepping back. For a moment, Marcus considered showing Derek exactly what a freak could do. He could have the quarterback unconscious on the floor in 3 moves, could demonstrate why enhanced soldiers had been humanity's answer to the Zarathi threat. Instead, he grabbed his backpack and walked away. Violence had been his solution for 3 years. He needed to find a better way. During lunch, Jessica found him again, sitting alone under a tree in the courtyard. She had been making an effort to include him in conversations, to help him feel more normal, though Marcus suspected she was more curious about his war experiences than she let on. "Heard about what happened in gym class," she said, settling down beside him on the grass. "Derek's being an idiot. Most people think what you did was pretty impressive." "Impressive isn't the word I'd use," Marcus replied, taking a bite of his apple. "More like problematic. I'm supposed to be blending in, not showing off enhanced abilities." Jessica was quiet for a moment, then asked, "What's it like? Being enhanced, I mean. Do you feel different?" Marcus considered the question. The nanobots had become so integrated into his system that he barely noticed them anymore, except when they kicked in during moments of stress or danger. "It's like having a computer running in the background of your mind," he said finally. "It processes information faster, makes connections I wouldn't normally make. But it also makes it hard to relate to people who think at normal speed. Is that why you seem so isolated? Because everyone else is too slow? It's more complicated than that." Marcus stared across the courtyard where students were laughing and talking about typical teenage concerns. When you've seen civilizations destroyed, when you've held friends while they died light years from home, it's hard to care about homework assignments and social drama. The enhancement just makes the contrast more obvious. Jessica nodded thoughtfully. "My therapist says trauma creates distance between people, that survivors often feel like they're living in a different world from everyone else." Marcus looked at her with surprise. "You have a therapist?" "My parents divorced 2 years ago," she explained. "It was pretty messy. I spent a lot of time angry at the world, feeling like no one understood what I was going through." She paused, then added, "Obviously it's not the same as fighting aliens, but isolation is isolation." For the first time since arriving at Jefferson High, Marcus felt a connection with another student. Jessica understood something about feeling displaced, about struggling to fit into a world that seemed to have moved on without you. It was a small thing, but it gave him hope that maybe integration was possible. The afternoon brought an unexpected crisis. During chemistry class, a junior named Peter Walsh accidentally mixed the wrong chemicals, creating a small explosion that filled the lab with toxic smoke. While other students panicked, Marcus's enhanced senses immediately identified the compounds involved and calculated the danger level. His military training kicked in. "Everyone out, now," he shouted, his voice carrying the authority of someone accustomed to being obeyed in life or death situations. Students who had been frozen in panic responded instantly to his command. Marcus grabbed Peter, who was closest to the explosion and showing signs of chemical inhalation, and carried him toward the door. In the hallway, Marcus quickly assessed Peter's condition. The boy was conscious but struggling to breathe. Marcus tilted his head back to open his airway and began checking for other injuries, his enhanced vision spotting minor burns on Peter's hands that others had missed. "Someone call 911, he ordered, then turned to Dr. Martinez, who had followed them out. "He needs oxygen therapy for the chemical exposure, and his hands need immediate treatment for chemical burns." The paramedics arrived within minutes and found Marcus's assessment completely accurate. Peter would recover fully, but without immediate intervention, he could have suffered permanent lung damage. As they loaded him into the ambulance, Dr. Martinez approached Marcus. "That was incredible," she said. "Your response time, your medical knowledge, the way you took control of the situation. You probably saved that boy's life." Marcus shrugged, uncomfortable with the praise. "Basic field medicine. Any soldier would have done the same." "No," Dr. Martinez shook her head. "Not like that. You processed the danger, organized the evacuation, and provided medical care in under 2 minutes. That wasn't just training, Marcus. That was exceptional." Word of the incident spread through the school within hours. Students who had been wary of Marcus began to see him differently. He wasn't just the strange veteran with enhanced abilities. He was someone who used those abilities to help others. Derek Thompson, who had witnessed the whole event, actually nodded respectfully when he passed Marcus in the hallway. That evening, Marcus sat in his small apartment reviewing homework that seemed absurdly simple after the day's events. His phone rang, displaying a number he recognized immediately. Colonel Reeves. Saw the news report about the school incident, her familiar voice said. Good work, Chen. You're making us proud. It wasn't anything special, Colonel. Just did what needed to be done. That's exactly what makes it special, she replied. You could have stayed in the background, let someone else handle it. Instead, you stepped up when people needed you. That's what being human is about, enhanced or not. After the call ended, Marcus realized something had changed. For the first time since returning to Earth, he didn't feel like an outsider trying to fit into civilian life. He felt like someone who belonged, someone whose unique abilities could serve a purpose beyond warfare. Maybe integration wasn't about becoming normal again. Maybe it was about finding new ways to serve, new reasons to use the gifts the war had given him. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but Marcus faced them with something he hadn't felt in months, hope that his future could be more than just surviving his past. 3 weeks into his time at Jefferson High, Marcus discovered that his reputation as the hero who saved Peter Walsh came with unexpected complications. Students approached him constantly, asking about the war, wanting to hear stories about alien battles, treating him like some kind of celebrity. Marcus found their fascination both flattering and deeply uncomfortable. The worst part was how they romanticized the conflict. They spoke about space battles as if they were exciting adventures, about enhanced soldiers as if they were superheroes from comic books. They had no understanding of the true cost of the war, the nightmares that still woke Marcus in cold sweats, or the friends whose names were carved into memorial walls across 3 star systems. During history class, Mr. Patterson assigned a project on recent global events and, inevitably, several students chose to focus on the Zarathi War. Marcus watched them research casualty figures and battle statistics, with the detached curiosity of people studying ancient history. When Sarah Kim raised her hand and asked if Marcus could be interviewed for her project, he politely declined. But you were actually there, she pressed. You could give us a first-hand account of what really happened. It would make my project amazing. Marcus felt the familiar tightness in his chest that came whenever people reduced his experiences to entertainment value. The war isn't a story to make your homework interesting, he said quietly. It's something that real people lived through and died in. Find another topic. Sarah's face flushed with embarrassment and the classroom fell silent. Marcus immediately regretted his harsh tone, but he couldn't take the words back. Mr. Patterson smoothly moved the discussion to other topics, but Marcus could feel the shift in atmosphere. He was becoming the difficult veteran, the one who couldn't handle normal social interactions. After class, Jessica caught up with him in the hallway. You know she didn't mean anything bad by it, right? She's just curious. I know, Marcus replied, adjusting his backpack. But curiosity about war usually means people don't understand what war actually is. They want exciting stories about heroic battles, not the reality of watching 18-year-olds die screaming for their mothers. Jessica was quiet for a moment, then said, Maybe that's exactly why you should tell them. Help them understand what the reality was like. Marcus considered her words as they walked toward the cafeteria. He had been trying to avoid talking about the war, to leave that part of his life behind and focus on moving forward. But perhaps that was impossible. Perhaps his experiences were too significant to simply ignore, and maybe sharing them could serve a purpose beyond satisfying teenage curiosity. During lunch, Marcus noticed a new student sitting alone at a corner table. The boy looked younger than most seniors, maybe 16, with the kind of nervous energy that Marcus recognized from new recruits. His enhanced hearing picked up fragments of conversations from nearby tables, students speculating about the newcomer, wondering if he was another veteran. Marcus approached the boy's table and sat down across from him. I'm Marcus. You're new here, right? The boy looked up with startled brown eyes. Yeah, I'm David Kim. I just transferred from the orbital stations. He paused, then added quietly, I'm a veteran too. Marcus studied David's face, noting the telltale signs of enhancement. The boy's eyes had the slight luminescence that came from optical nanobots, and his movements had the controlled precision of someone with enhanced reflexes. But there was something else, a fragility that spoke of different traumas than Marcus had experienced. "What unit?" Marcus asked. "Engineering Corps, 15th Orbital Division," David replied. "I spent most of the war on construction projects, building defense platforms, repairing stations after Zarathi attacks." His voice dropped even lower. "I was on Titan Station when the Zarathi broke through the Jupiter defense grid." Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. He remembered Titan Station, remembered the desperate evacuation calls that had come through military channels. The Zarathi had overrun the civilian sections before help could arrive. Thousands of people had died, including many families of military personnel. "I'm sorry," Marcus said simply. "That was a rough one." David nodded, not meeting his eyes. "I was in the lower engineering sections when it happened. The nanobots kept me alive when the life support failed, but I couldn't save anyone else. I just hid in the maintenance tunnels while people died above me." Marcus understood now why David seemed so fragile. Combat veterans like Marcus had trained for violence, had been mentally prepared for the possibility of death. But David had been a support specialist, a teenager who had signed up to build things, not to watch civilians die while he survived through technological advantage. "Survivor's guilt is normal," Marcus said carefully. "It doesn't mean you did anything wrong, doesn't it?" David's voice was bitter. "I had enhanced strength and speed. I could have tried to help people escape. Instead, I followed emergency protocols and stayed hidden until the evacuation ships arrived." Marcus leaned forward, recognizing the self-destructive thinking that had plagued him after his own worst experiences. "David, if you had tried to play hero, you would have died with everyone else. The nanobots kept you alive, but they don't make you invincible. Following protocols was the right choice." "That's what my therapist says," David muttered, "but it doesn't make the nightmares stop." The conversation was interrupted when Derek Thompson and his friends approached their table. Marcus tensed, expecting another confrontation, but Derek's expression was serious rather than hostile. "Chen, we need to talk," Derek said. "There's a problem brewing and people think you should know about it." Marcus looked between Derek and David, then gestured for Derek to continue. "There's this group of students led by Brian Cox from the junior class. They're planning some kind of protest about having veterans in school. They think enhanced people are dangerous, that you don't belong here with regular students." Marcus felt his jaw tighten. He had encountered anti-veteran sentiment before, usually from people who resented the special treatment enhanced soldiers received or who feared what they represented. "What kind of protest?" "They're planning to skip classes and demonstrate outside the principal's office," Derek explained. "They want to demand that veterans be sent to separate schools or special programs. Cox has been telling people that the incident in chemistry class proves enhanced people can't control themselves." David looked up in alarm. "They know about me too?" Derek nodded grimly. "Word gets around. Cox has been building a list of students he thinks might be veterans. He's got maybe 30 people planning to join his protest." Marcus stood up slowly, his mind already working through the implications. A public demonstration against veterans could quickly spiral out of control, especially if media attention got involved. The last thing the Veteran Integration Program needed was negative publicity about enhanced soldiers being unable to adapt to civilian life. "When is this supposed to happen?" Marcus asked. "Tomorrow morning, first period," Derek replied. "Look, I know we got off on the wrong foot, but this Cox guy is a real piece of work. He's been spreading stories about how enhanced soldiers are ticking time bombs, how it's only a matter of time before one of you snaps and hurts someone." Marcus felt the familiar cold anger building, but he forced himself to stay calm. Violence wasn't the answer here. No matter how satisfying it might feel to show Brian Cox exactly what an enhanced soldier could do, this situation required a different approach, one that demonstrated wisdom rather than strength. "Thanks for the warning," Marcus said to Derek. "I'll handle this." "How?" David asked nervously. "If they want us gone, maybe we should just transfer to another school. Avoid the confrontation entirely." Marcus looked at the younger veteran, seeing his own fears reflected in David's eyes. The boy had already been through too much trauma to face another hostile situation, but running away would only reinforce the idea that veterans couldn't integrate into normal society. "No," Marcus said firmly. "We belong here as much as anyone else. If Brian Cox wants a demonstration about veterans, then he's going to get one. Just not the kind he's expecting." That evening, Marcus called Colonel Reeves to discuss the situation. Her advice was practical and direct. Don't let them turn this into a conflict, she said. Show them that veterans aren't threats to be feared, but assets to be valued. Use your abilities to demonstrate service, not dominance. Marcus spent the night planning his response to tomorrow's protest. By morning, he had a strategy that would either diffuse the situation entirely or make it much worse. Either way, it was time to show Jefferson High what it really meant to be an enhanced veteran. Marcus arrived at Jefferson High 30 minutes early on the morning of Brian Cox's planned protest. Instead of heading to his locker, he went straight to the main office where Principal Rodriguez was reviewing his schedule for the day. Marcus knocked on the open door and stepped inside. "Mr. Chen," Principal Rodriguez looked up with surprise. "You're here early. Is everything all right? I need to talk to you about something that's going to happen this morning," Marcus said, taking the seat across from the principal's desk. "There's going to be a student demonstration against veterans attending regular schools. I'd like your permission to address the protesters directly." Principal Rodriguez set down his coffee mug, his expression growing serious. "How do you know about this demonstration?" "Word travels fast," Marcus replied. "The point is, this situation can either escalate into something ugly, or it can become an opportunity for education. I'd prefer the latter." "What exactly are you proposing?" Marcus leaned forward. "Let me speak to the protesters, not to argue with them or defend my presence here, but to help them understand what veterans actually are. Most of their fear comes from ignorance about enhancement technology and what we experienced during the war." Principal Rodriguez studied Marcus's face carefully. "And you think you can change their minds?" "I think I can give them information to make better decisions," Marcus said. "Fear of the unknown is natural. Fear based on accurate knowledge is different than fear based on speculation and rumors." 20 minutes later, Marcus stood in the hallway outside the main office, watching as Brian Cox and his supporters gathered near the administration area. There were about 25 students, fewer than Derek had predicted, but still enough to cause significant disruption. Marcus recognized most of them as underclassmen who had never spoken to him directly. Brian Cox was a thin junior with the aggressive confidence of someone who had never faced real danger. He carried a hastily made sign reading, "Enhanced soldiers don't belong in civilian schools," and was giving what sounded like a motivational speech to his followers. "These people have been programmed to kill," Cox was saying. "They've been turned into weapons by military science. How long before one of them loses control and hurts innocent students?" Marcus waited until Cox finished his speech, then stepped forward. The protesters fell silent, suddenly aware that the subject of their demonstration was standing just a few feet away. Marcus could see fear in several faces, along with curiosity and defiance. "I'm Marcus Chen," he said simply. "I understand you have concerns about veterans attending Jefferson High. I'd like to address those concerns if you're willing to listen." Cox's face flushed with anger. "This is exactly what I'm talking about. You think you can intimidate us into backing down, just like you intimidated Derek Thompson in the locker room." "Actually, Derek warned me about your protest," Marcus replied calmly. "He thought you deserved to have accurate information before making your demonstration. So did Principal Rodriguez, which is why he's allowing me to speak with you." "We don't want to hear your propaganda," Cox snapped. "We know what you are. Enhanced killers who can't adapt to peaceful society." Marcus nodded thoughtfully. "You're partially right. I am enhanced and I did kill people during the war. But let me explain what that actually means." He gestured to his eyes, which several students were now staring at intently. "These nanobots improve my visual processing. They let me see details that normal humans miss, track multiple moving objects simultaneously, and calculate distances with extreme accuracy. During the war, that made me a better soldier. Here at Jefferson High, it helped me notice chemical burns on Peter Walsh's hands that the paramedics initially missed," Marcus continued, his voice steady and educational rather than defensive. "The nanobots in my nervous system speed up my reflexes and improve my coordination. In combat, that kept me alive when Zarathi warriors tried to tear me apart with their claws. In gym class, it made me better at dodgeball than I should have been, which is why Coach Williams had to tell me to ease up." Some of the protesters were listening intently now, their initial hostility shifting to curiosity. Cox looked frustrated that his demonstration was turning into a science lesson. "The enhancement also affects my brain," Marcus continued. "It improves memory, pattern recognition, and analytical thinking. That's how I was able to identify the chemical compounds in yesterday's lab accident and organize an effective response. It's also why I find most high school coursework extremely easy. A sophomore named Jenny raised her hand tentatively. But doesn't the military training make you violent? Don't you have urges to hurt people? Marcus considered the question seriously. Military training teaches controlled aggression, not random violence. We learned when to fight and when not to fight, how to protect civilians and follow rules of engagement. The discipline is actually stronger than the aggression. Then why did you threaten Derek? Cox demanded. I didn't threaten Derek, Marcus replied. I walked away from a confrontation because violence wasn't appropriate. Derek can confirm that if you ask him. Derek Thompson appeared at the edge of the crowd, having arrived to witness the demonstration. He's right, Derek said loudly. Marcus could have flattened me and my friends without breaking a sweat, but he chose not to. That's not the behavior of someone who can't control himself. Cox's protest was rapidly losing momentum as students began asking genuine questions instead of making accusations. Marcus answered each inquiry patiently, explaining the realities of enhancement technology, the psychological support systems available to veterans, and the careful screening process that determined which veterans were suitable for civilian integration. What about the nightmares? Asked a quiet girl from the back of the group. My uncle was in the war and he says you all have PTSD. Marcus felt the familiar tightness in his chest but pushed through it. Many of us do struggle with trauma from what we experienced. That's why there are counseling programs and medical support systems. Having PTSD doesn't make someone dangerous. It makes them someone who needs understanding and help. David Kim appeared in the hallway, having heard about the confrontation. Marcus could see the nervousness in the younger veteran's posture. The way he hung back from the crowd, Marcus gestured for him to come forward. This is David Kim, another veteran at Jefferson High, Marcus said. David, would you mind telling them about your service? David's voice was shaky but clear. I was an engineering specialist on orbital construction projects. I built things instead of destroying them. When Titan Station was attacked, the enhancement nanobots kept me alive, but I couldn't save anyone else. I came to Jefferson High because I want to use my technical knowledge to build things again. Maybe become a real engineer someday. The simple honesty in David's words seemed to affect the protesters more than any argument Marcus could have made. Here was a veteran who clearly needed support, not fear and rejection. Cox made one last attempt to rally his supporters. This is all very touching, but you're still weapons. Enhanced soldiers are experiments, not normal people. You don't belong in schools with regular students. Marcus felt his anger flare but controlled it carefully. Instead of responding with emotion, he asked a simple question. Brian, what makes someone belong somewhere? Cox looked confused by the question. What do you mean? I mean, what criteria determine whether someone belongs at Jefferson High? Good grades? Following school rules? Contributing positively to the community? Helping other students when they're in trouble? Cox opened his mouth to respond, then closed it as he realized the trap Marcus had laid. Every criterion that determined school membership was something Marcus had already demonstrated. Marcus continued gently. I understand your fear. Enhancement technology is new and sometimes frightening. But David and I aren't here to hurt anyone. We're here to finish our education and find our place in civilian society. We want the same things every student wants, to learn, to grow, and to prepare for productive futures. Principal Rodriguez, who had been watching from his office doorway, stepped forward. I think this has been a very productive discussion, he said diplomatically. But classes are about to start and everyone needs to get to their first period. As the crowd began to disperse, many students approached Marcus and David with questions that were curious rather than hostile. Cox gathered his core supporters and walked away, clearly defeated but not necessarily converted. Marcus considered that a partial victory. Jessica found Marcus at his locker before first period began. That was brilliantly handled, she said. You turned a hostile demonstration into an educational opportunity. It's what we were trained to do, Marcus replied, grabbing his textbooks. Win hearts and minds, not just battles. Though I have to admit high school politics are almost as complicated as military strategy. Jessica laughed. More complicated, probably. At least in war, you know who the enemy is. As Marcus walked to his first class, he realized something important had changed. The hallways felt different now, less hostile and more welcoming. Students who had avoided him before nodded respectfully or smiled as he passed. He had proven that veterans could handle civilian challenges with wisdom rather than force. That enhancement made them valuable community members rather than dangerous outsiders. But he also knew this was just the beginning. Real integration would take time, patience, and continued proof that veterans like him and David could contribute positively to society. The protest had been just one test among many still to come. 2 months after the protest incident, Marcus had settled into a routine at Jefferson High that felt almost normal. His enhanced abilities were no longer sources of fear or fascination, but simply accepted parts of who he was. Students came to him for help with difficult subjects. Teachers appreciated his insights during class discussions, and even Brian Cox had grudgingly acknowledged his presence with a nod in the hallways. The real test came on a cold November morning when Marcus was sitting in calculus class, working through differential equations that his enhanced mind solved almost instantly. Mrs. Thompson was explaining integration techniques to students who struggled with concepts Marcus found elementary, when the emergency alert system activated throughout the school. A harsh electronic tone filled the air, followed by Principal Rodriguez's voice over the intercom. "This is not a drill. We are implementing immediate lockdown procedures. All students and staff are to shelter in place until further notice. Lock your doors and remain silent." Marcus's enhanced hearing immediately picked up sounds that others missed. Sirens in the distance growing closer. The distinctive whine of emergency vehicles. Most telling was the subsonic vibration that his nanobots identified as heavy aircraft approaching at high speed. Mrs. Thompson quickly locked the classroom door and instructed students to move away from windows. Around Marcus, his classmates were pulling out phones trying to understand what was happening. Social media was already buzzing with speculation and rumors. Marcus closed his eyes and focused his enhanced senses outward. His hearing could detect conversations from other classrooms, the nervous chatter of students and teachers trying to remain calm. But beyond the school, he could hear something else. The deep rumble of military transport vehicles, the organized movement of personnel and tactical gear. David Kim was in this class too, sitting 2 rows behind Marcus. Their eyes met across the room, and Marcus could see that David's enhanced senses were picking up the same alarming signals. This wasn't a typical emergency lockdown. This was something much more serious. Jessica, who sat next to Marcus, leaned over and whispered, "Can you tell what's happening out there?" Marcus shook his head slightly, not wanting to alarm the other students. But privately, he was analyzing every sound, every vibration, trying to determine the nature of the threat. The aircraft he was hearing had the signature of military dropships. The vehicles were positioned in a perimeter pattern around the school. This was either a massive training exercise or a real crisis involving significant danger. His phone buzzed with a text message from Colonel Reeves. The message was brief but chilling. "Zarathi infiltrator team detected in your area. Enhanced veterans may be primary targets. Stay alert. Military support en route." Marcus felt his blood turn to ice. The Zarathi war was supposed to be over. The alien empire had retreated to their home systems after losing their fleet commanders. But intelligence reports had suggested that small infiltrator teams might attempt revenge attacks against Earth, specifically targeting enhanced soldiers who had been instrumental in the alien defeat. Marcus quietly showed the message to David, whose face went pale. The younger veteran was already struggling with trauma from Titan Station. The thought of facing Zarathi warriors again, especially in a civilian environment, was clearly terrifying. The classroom remained silent for 20 minutes before Mrs. Thompson's radio crackled with an update from the administration. "All teachers, this is Principal Rodriguez. We have confirmed reports of hostile infiltrators in the vicinity. Military personnel are coordinating response efforts. Continue lockdown procedures until we receive all clear signals." Marcus's enhanced vision caught movement outside the classroom windows. Figures in advanced tactical gear were moving across the school grounds, but their movement patterns were wrong. Too fluid, too fast for human soldiers. The nanobots in Marcus's system began flooding his bloodstream with combat stimulants as his body recognized the threat. Zarathi infiltrators. The aliens were smaller than humans, but incredibly fast and agile, with natural weapons that could tear through most body armor. During the war, it had taken enhanced soldiers with advanced equipment to match them in close combat. Here at Jefferson High, they would be virtually unstoppable against civilian targets. Marcus made a decision that went against every protocol he had learned about civilian integration. He stood up from his desk, ignoring Mrs. Thompson's alarmed whisper to sit back down. "David," he said quietly, "we have a problem." David nodded, understanding immediately. Both veterans could see what the other students couldn't. Jefferson High was under attack by alien warriors who had come specifically to kill enhanced soldiers, and everyone else was potential collateral damage. "What are you two talking about?" Jessica asked, her voice tight with worry. Marcus looked around the classroom at 23 students and one teacher, who had no idea they were about to become casualties in a war they thought was over. These people trusted him, had accepted him as part of their community despite his enhanced nature. Now his presence had brought deadly danger to their doorstep. "Mrs. Thompson," Marcus said formally, "I need you to evacuate this classroom immediately. Take the students to the gymnasium and barricade yourselves inside. Do not leave the building, but get as far from the outer walls as possible." "Marcus, what are you talking about?" Mrs. Thompson looked confused and frightened. "We're supposed to shelter in place." "The threat is specifically targeting veterans," Marcus explained, his voice taking on the authoritative tone of someone accustomed to giving orders in life or death situations. "David and I need to draw them away from civilian areas. You need to get everyone to safety." Jessica grabbed Marcus's arm. "You can't go out there. Whatever's happening, let the police handle it." Marcus gently removed her hand from his arm, meeting her eyes with a look of grim determination. "The police aren't equipped for this. Enhanced soldiers are." David stood up beside Marcus, his fear visible but his resolve clear. "We took an oath to protect humanity. That didn't end when the war did." Outside the classroom, Marcus could hear the distinctive sound of Zarathi energy weapons charging. The aliens had found the school and were beginning their attack. In moments, they would breach the building's defenses and begin hunting for their primary targets. Marcus moved to Mrs. Thompson's desk and quickly wrote down Colonel Reeves's contact information. "Call this number and tell them Marcus Chen is requesting immediate enhanced veteran support at Jefferson High. Tell them we have confirmed Zarathi infiltrators and are engaging." Mrs. Thompson took the paper with shaking hands. "Marcus, you're just a student. You can't fight aliens." Marcus looked at her with something approaching pity. Even after months of integration, civilians still didn't understand what enhanced soldiers really were. They saw teenagers trying to fit into normal life, not weapons that had been forged in the crucible of interstellar war. "Ma'am," Marcus said quietly, "I'm not just a student. I'm the soldier who killed war leader Theshkar on the Zarathi throne world. David built the orbital defense platforms that protected Earth's colonies. We're exactly who needs to fight aliens." The sound of energy weapons grew closer, accompanied by the terrified screams of students in other parts of the building. Marcus could hear the distinctive chittering communication of Zarathi warriors as they coordinated their attack. Time was running out. "Go," Marcus told Mrs. Thompson. "Get everyone to the gymnasium. Lock the doors and wait for military support." As the class began their evacuation, Jessica lingered behind. "Marcus, what if you don't come back?" Marcus managed a small smile. "Then you'll remember that some people are worth the risk of knowing them." Marcus and David waited until the classroom was empty, then moved toward the door. Outside in the hallway, they could hear the sounds of battle beginning. Energy weapons discharged, followed by human screams and the alien chittering that Marcus remembered from countless nightmares. "Ready for one more mission?" Marcus asked David. David's hands were shaking, but his voice was steady. "For Earth. For humanity." They opened the classroom door and stepped into the hallway, two enhanced veterans moving to face an enemy they had hoped never to encounter again. Behind them, 23 students and one teacher hurried toward whatever safety they could find. Ahead lay the kind of battle that would determine whether Marcus's integration into civilian life had been a new beginning or simply a peaceful interlude before the war resumed. Marcus and David moved through the hallways of Jefferson High with the practiced coordination of soldiers who had fought together before, even though they had never served in the same unit. Their enhanced senses painted a detailed picture of the battle unfolding around them. 3 Zarathi infiltrators had entered the building through different access points, their movements designed to trap any enhanced veterans inside while maximizing civilian casualties. The first alien appeared at the intersection of the main hallway and the science wing. Marcus saw it before it saw him, a sleek bipedal form covered in adaptive armor that shifted colors to match its surroundings. The Zerathi held an energy rifle that hummed with lethal potential, its compound eyes scanning for enhanced human signatures. Marcus signaled David to circle around while he moved directly toward the creature. His nanobots flooded his system with combat stimulants, sharpening his reflexes and numbing his fear response. This was what he had been made for, what 3 years of enhancement and training had prepared him to do. The Zerathi spotted him and raised its weapon, but Marcus was already moving. His enhanced speed carried him across the hallway in a blur of motion, closing the distance before the alien could acquire a proper target lock. Marcus tackled the creature, using his enhanced strength to drive it into the wall with enough force to crack the concrete. The Zerathi was faster than a normal human, but Marcus was no longer normal. His nanobots calculated the alien's movement patterns, predicting its attacks and allowing him to counter with precise efficiency. When the creature tried to slash him with its natural claws, Marcus caught its arm and twisted with mechanical precision. Hearing the satisfying crack of alien bone breaking, David appeared behind the Zerathi and grabbed its energy weapon, his enhanced reflexes allowing him to strip it away before the creature could react. The younger veteran's face was pale with fear, but his movements were controlled and effective. 2 more in the building, Marcus said, his enhanced hearing tracking their positions. 1 in the cafeteria, 1 near the main office. I'll take the cafeteria, David said, his voice steadier now that combat had begun. You handle the office. Marcus nodded and moved toward the administrative area, where he could hear the sounds of terrified staff members trying to barricade themselves inside rooms. The second Zerathi was methodically searching offices, looking for enhanced targets while terrorizing anyone it found. When Marcus reached the main office area, he found Principal Rodriguez and 2 secretaries huddled behind an overturned desk, while the alien stalked through the reception area. The Zerathi had already identified Marcus's approach, its superior senses alerting it to the presence of enhanced nanobots. This creature was larger than the first, clearly a veteran warrior rather than a basic infiltrator. It carried 2 energy weapons and moved with the fluid confidence of a predator that had killed many enhanced humans during the war. When it saw Marcus, it chittered something in its native language that sounded like satisfaction. Enhanced Killer Chen, it spoke in accented English, its translator implant making the words sound mechanical and harsh. War Leader Theshikar sends greetings from the depths of death. Marcus felt a chill of recognition. This wasn't a random revenge attack. The Zerathi knew exactly who he was, had come specifically to kill the soldier who had ended their war leader's life. His enhanced mind quickly calculated the implications. If they knew his identity and location, they probably knew about other enhanced veterans as well. This was the beginning of a systematic assassination campaign. Theshkar was a butcher, Marcus replied, circling the alien while keeping himself between it and the trapped civilians. His death saved millions of human lives. His death will be avenged, the Zerathi snarled, raising both energy weapons. Your enhancement will not save you from the fury of his honor guard. The creature opened fire with both weapons simultaneously, filling the reception area with deadly energy beams. Marcus dove behind a heavy metal filing cabinet, feeling the heat wash over him as the alien's weapons supercharged the air around him. His nanobots were already analyzing the weapon signatures, calculating firing patterns and charge cycles. Marcus waited for the brief pause between firing sequences, then launched himself across the room in a rolling dive that brought him within striking distance of the Zerathi. His enhanced reflexes allowed him to grab one of the alien's weapons and redirect its aim upward, sending energy beams harmlessly into the ceiling. The Zerathi was stronger than Marcus had expected, its musculature enhanced by their own biological modifications. It struck him across the face with its free hand, claws raking across his cheek and drawing blood. Marcus responded by driving his knee into the creature's center mass. Feeling its armor crack under the impact, they grappled for control of the weapons. 2 enhanced beings locked in mortal combat while terrified humans watched from behind makeshift cover. Marcus could hear David fighting the 3rd Zerathi in the cafeteria, energy weapons discharging and furniture being destroyed. The Zerathi tried to bite Marcus's throat with rows of razor-sharp teeth, but his enhanced reflexes allowed him to catch its head in his hands and twist sharply. The alien's neck snapped with a wet crack and its body went limp. Marcus grabbed both alien weapons and rushed toward the cafeteria, where David's combat sounds had suddenly gone silent. He found the younger veteran pinned beneath an overturned table, blood seeping from a wound in his shoulder. The third Zarathi stood over him, preparing to deliver a killing blow with its claws. Marcus didn't hesitate. He opened fire with both captured weapons, sending concentrated energy beams across the cafeteria. The alien spun toward him, raising its own weapon to return fire, but Marcus's enhanced marksmanship proved superior. His shot struck the creature center mass, burning through its armor and dropping it to the floor. "David!" Marcus rushed to his friend's side, checking the wound in his shoulder. The claws had gone deep, but the nanobots in David's system were already working to seal the injury and prevent infection. "I'm okay," David gasped. "Just got careless." "Is that all of them?" Marcus used his enhanced hearing to scan the building. The sounds of combat had ceased, and he could detect military vehicles approaching the school. "I think so. But this was just the advance team. If they found me here, they'll find other veterans too." Colonel Reeves arrived with a full tactical team 20 minutes later, securing the school and evacuating the remaining civilians. The 3 Zarathi bodies were collected for intelligence analysis, their equipment and translator implants providing valuable information about the scope of the alien revenge campaign. Marcus sat in the school nurse's office while a military medic treated the claw marks on his face. Through the window, he could see students and teachers being interviewed by intelligence officers, their statements helping to piece together the timeline of the attack. Jessica appeared in the doorway, having refused to leave with the other evacuated students. "Are you okay?" she asked, her voice shaky with residual fear. "I'm fine," Marcus replied, though he knew that wasn't entirely true. The attack had shattered the illusion of peaceful civilian life, reminding him that the war might never truly be over for enhanced veterans. Principal Rodriguez entered the nurse's office, his face grim. "The military says there may be more attacks on schools with veteran students. They're recommending enhanced security measures and possibly relocating veterans to specialized facilities." Marcus felt a familiar sense of displacement, the feeling that he would never truly belong in civilian society. "Are you asking me to leave Jefferson High?" "No," Principal Rodriguez said firmly. "I'm asking if you want to stay. After what happened today, I think everyone understands what kind of person you really are. You risked your life to protect students and staff who aren't even your responsibility anymore. That makes you exactly the kind of person we want in our school community." Marcus looked around the nurse's office, at Jessica's concerned face, at Principal Rodriguez's determined expression, at David, who was getting his shoulder bandaged by the medic. These people had seen him at his most dangerous, had witnessed him kill alien warriors with enhanced brutality, and they still wanted him to stay. "The nanobots make me a weapon," Marcus said quietly, "but they don't make me a monster. I'd like to continue attending Jefferson High if you'll have me." Jessica smiled through her tears. "Where else are we going to find someone who can help with calculus homework and fight alien invasions?" 6 months later, Marcus walked across the stage at Jefferson High's graduation ceremony, his diploma representing more than just academic achievement. It symbolized successful integration between enhanced veterans and civilian society, proof that soldiers could become students, that weapons could become protectors, and that those who had fought humanity's darkest war could still contribute to its brightest future. In the audience, Colonel Reeves watched with pride as her former soldier became a civilian success story. Beside her sat Jessica's parents, David's family, and dozens of other people whose lives had been touched by the veteran who had survived the battlefield, only to face the chaos of high school and emerge stronger for the experience. The war had changed Marcus Chen in ways that could never be undone, but high school had changed him too, teaching him that strength could be gentle, that power could serve others, and that sometimes the greatest victory was simply learning to belong somewhere again. As he walked off the stage with his diploma, Marcus caught sight of a new student in the crowd, a young veteran with the telltale signs of enhancement who was starting his own journey toward integration. Marcus made a mental note to introduce himself tomorrow. After all, everyone needed someone to show them that it was possible to find peace after war, purpose after service, and hope after surviving when others didn't. The future was uncertain, and there would probably be more battles to fight. But for now, Marcus Chen was simply a high school graduate with enhanced abilities, ready to use his gifts in service of the civilian world he had fought to protect. And that felt like the most human thing of all.